Not all St. Patrick's Day stories bring good luck. Some are cursed, some are haunted, and some you'll wish you had never heard at all. Before we begin, make sure to like this video. It helps us reach more horror fans like you. And if you love terrifying stories that keep you up at night, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss what's lurking in the dark. Are you ready? Let's begin. I love St. Patrick's Day. Every year the parade runs through my city, filling the streets with music, laughter, and dancing. My apartment had the perfect view, a small balcony overlooking the main road where the floats passed by. This year, I decided to watch from up there, drink in hand, enjoying the view. The crowd was electric. Green confetti rained down, the smell of fried food filled the air, and the sound of bagpipes and drums echoed through the streets. The parade marched on, one float after another. Dancers, performers, people tossing candy to children. Everything was perfect, until it wasn't. After about an hour, I checked my phone. 9 p.m. The parade should have been wrapping up soon, but it wasn't. I leaned over the railing, watching the floats go by. Something felt off. At first, I couldn't put my finger on it. Then, as a group of smiling dancers twirled past, I realized I had seen them before. Same faces, same movements. Another float rolled by, one I had already watched. The people standing on it were laughing, waving, just as they had before. I frowned, rubbing my arms against the sudden chill in the air. Then it happened again. The same group of dancers, the same float, the same people. The parade wasn't ending, it was repeating. Confused, I went back inside to check my phone. The screen was frozen. The clock still read 9 p.m. I grabbed the TV remote, flipping to the news. Static. That's when I heard it. Music inside my apartment. The sound of drums, bagpipes, and laughter. I turned back toward my balcony, and the parade was gone. The street was empty, but the music was closer now. I turned slowly, and suddenly I wasn't in my apartment anymore. I was in the parade, surrounded by dancers, marching bands, and grinning faces. I tried to step back, to run, but my feet moved on their own, perfectly in sync with the parade. My arms lifted, my head turned. I was dancing, smiling, waving, just like them. The crowd cheered as we passed, but their faces were too blurry, too distant, as if they weren't really there. I wasn't watching anymore. I was part of it. And deep inside, I knew. I might never stop marching. I don't know how long I was in there. Hours? Days? I marched through the same street over and over again. The floats never changed. The music never faded. Then I noticed something. The green confetti. It wasn't falling from above. It was swirling, forming strange patterns on the ground. A message. I focused, forcing myself to ignore the parade around me. The confetti shifted beneath my feet, rearranging itself into words. Step out of rhythm. I glanced around. No one else seemed to notice. For the first time, I forced my foot out of sync. The world trembled. The music stuttered. The floats glitched. Faces blurred and twisted. The parade cracked like shattered glass. I stumbled backward, and suddenly I was back on my balcony. The street below was empty. The parade was gone. And when I checked my phone, the time had finally changed. Midnight. The next morning, the news reported a strange fog rolling through the city overnight, making visibility impossible. No one else seemed to remember the parade lasting longer than it should have. I tried searching for answers. Had this happened before? But there was nothing. All I know is that next year, when St. Patrick's Day comes around, I won't be watching from the balcony. I always thought finding a four-leaf clover was a sign of good luck. I was out for a walk in the countryside, the sun warm on my skin, when I spotted it. A small, perfect four-leaf clover hidden among the grass. I plucked it without thinking, a small thrill running through me. Maybe today's my lucky day, I muttered, tucking it into my pocket. That was my first mistake. That night, the air felt heavy. I was getting ready for bed when I heard it, a faint whisper. At first, I thought it was coming from outside, but as I listened, I realized it was inside my room. The voice was low, almost too soft to hear. It didn't sound human. I froze, heart pounding, as my bedroom mirror cracked down the center with a sharp snap. I jumped back, my breath catching in my throat. My reflection was shattered, fractured into a dozen distorted versions of myself. But for one terrible second, I could have sworn I saw something else staring back at me. Something that wasn't me. I tried to ignore it. I told myself the mirror breaking was a coincidence. But then, the shadows started moving. It was small at first. A flicker in the corner of my eye, a strange shape in my hallway when no one was there. Then, one night, I saw it clearly. I had been working late, the glow of my laptop the only light in the room. I glanced toward the doorway and froze. A shadow stood there. Tall, unmoving, completely black. I could feel it watching me. The air grew icy. My stomach twisted with the primal, undeniable feeling that I was not alone. Then, it took a step forward. I slammed my laptop shut and ran into my bedroom, locking the door behind me. My pocket felt strangely warm. I reached inside and pulled out the 4-leaf clover. And that's when I finally understood. I wasn't lucky. I had taken something that didn't belong to me, and it wanted it back. I didn't sleep. The whispers grew louder, pressing against my mind like voices from another world. The shadow never left my doorway. It was waiting. By dawn, I knew what I had to do. I grabbed my keys and drove back to the field where I had found the clover. The morning was eerily quiet, the trees unnaturally still. I stepped onto the grass, my hands shaking, and dropped the clover exactly where I had found it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the wind picked up, a sudden unnatural gust that carried the sound of distant whispers. The shadow melted away, disappearing with the wind. The moment it was gone, I felt lighter, like a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying had finally lifted. I didn't stay long. I never told anyone what happened. Who would believe me? All I know is that some things aren't meant to be taken. And now, whenever I see a 4-leaf clover, I leave it where it is. I should have known something was off the moment I arrived. The town wasn't on any map. I had been driving through the Irish countryside when I saw the signs, "Welcome to Dunmuir St. Patrick's Day Festival tonight." I wasn't planning to stop, but the warm glow of lanterns, the sound of laughter, and the lively music spilling from the pubs pulled me in. The streets were lined with green and gold decorations. People in traditional Irish attire danced in the square, and the scent of roasted food filled the air. It was the perfect little town, a postcard version of old Ireland. And yet, something felt strange. The people were too friendly, their smiles just a little too wide. No one had a phone. When I asked for Wi-Fi, the bartender just chuckled. "No need for that here," he said, sliding me a pint. I figured I'd spend the night and leave in the morning. That was my mistake. I woke up to silence. The laughter, the music, the festival, all gone. I stepped outside my inn and froze. The streets were empty. The decorations from last night were tattered and sun-bleached, flapping in the wind like they'd been there for decades. The buildings looked abandoned, covered in vines, their windows broken. The pub where I had been drinking the night before, a collapsed ruin. I told myself it was a prank. It had to be. But the moment I tried to leave, I realized I was trapped. The road I had driven in on was gone, replaced by an endless mist. No matter which way I walked, I always ended up back in the center of town. That's when I saw the first shadow, a figure in the fog watching me. Then another, and another. They didn't move. They didn't speak. They just stood there, staring. I ran back to my room, slamming the door shut, my heart hammering in my chest. And that's when I saw the note. Leave before sunset, or stay forever. I had no idea what it meant, but I wasn't waiting to find out. I grabbed my bag and started running. Every street led me back to the square. Every turn took me in circles. I was trapped in a place that didn't exist. Then I remembered something. The bartender's words. No need for that here. I yanked out my phone. No signal. But I had one last trick. GPS. I pulled up my offline map and looked for my last known location. Dunmere wasn't there, but my car was. I turned in the direction of the blinking dot and ran like hell. The fog thickened, the shadows closed in, and I could hear whispers on the wind. My feet pounded against the pavement as the world around me seemed to fade, dissolve, disappear. I reached the edge of town and saw my car, half buried in overgrown weeds, like it had been sitting there for years. I didn't care. I jumped in, started the engine, and floored it. The mist swirled around me, the town disappearing in the rearview mirror. For a moment, I felt hands brushing against the car, like something was trying to pull me back. Then, suddenly, I was on an open road. The town was gone. When I finally found a real town, I asked the locals about Dunmere. They just stared at me. Dunmere, one old man said. That town vanished 100 years ago. I showed him a picture I had taken the night before. A glowing festival, a bustling crowd. He paled. That's impossible, he whispered. I don't know what Dunmore was. A ghost town? A trap? A place lost in time? All I know is that I got out. And next St. Patrick's Day, I'll be far, far away from any town that isn't on the map.